that United States Embassy will open before the end of next year.
You're listening to Inside Israel Today with Gil Hoffman on the Land of Israel Network.
Hello and welcome to Inside Israel Today, broadcasting from Jerusalem here on a wonderful Tuesday morning where people are waking up feeling very good about themselves in the wake of the visit by the Vice President of the United States, who said so many beautiful things about Israel and about Jerusalem. You know, if you're a lover of Israel, a lover of Zion, hearing the beautiful things that the Vice President said about Jerusalem and about Israel, you can't help but kvel. You can't help but be just filled with joy to hear a Vice President of the United States say such things.
And so today, as I stand in Abraham's promised land, I believe that all who cherish freedom and seek a brighter future should cast their eyes here to this place and marvel at what they behold. How unlikely was Israel's birth? How more unlikely has been her survival? And how confounding and against the odds has been her thriving? You've turned the desert into a garden, scarcity into plenty, sickness into health, and you turned hope into a future. Israel is like a tree that has grown deep roots in the soil of your forefathers, yet as it grows, it reaches ever closer to the heavens. And today and every day, the Jewish state of Israel and all the Jewish people bear witness to God's faithfulness, as well as your own. It was the faith of the Jewish people that gathered the scattered fragments of a people and made them whole again. That took the language of the Bible and the landscape of the Psalms and made them live again. The Jewish people's unbreakable bond to this sacred city reaches back more than 3,000 years. It was here in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah that Abraham offered his son, Isaac, and was credited with righteousness for his faith in God. It was here in Jerusalem that King David consecrated the capital of the kingdom of Israel. And since its rebirth, the modern state of Israel has called this city the seat of its government. Jerusalem is Israel's capital.
That was Mike Pence speaking about Israel in the Knesset. Didn't that feel great? But he's going, unfortunately, later today. He's not going to be staying here for that much longer, and then we are going to be left to deal with the challenges. Unfortunately, this visit hasn't exactly brought us good public relations around the world. As I was listening to the speech, I thought, too bad people around the world aren't going to hear what he actually said, because they're going to be focusing only on the protest that there was of the Arab members of Knesset. They made their point that they're upset that Jerusalem, that when Donald Trump announced that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, he didn't make more clear that he's leaving open the possibility that Jerusalem could also be the capital of a Palestinian state. I think he did make it clear, but I guess he could have made it more clear. And so they hoisted up those signs, and the ushers, not security guards, not bodyguards or whatever they were called abroad, not like police or military or whatever they tried to make it look, removed them, just ushers from the parliament, as they would if a right-wing Jew, caused a provocation in the middle of the plenum when there was a visiting dignitary. So, unfortunately, that is what has made news all around the world, not any of the beautiful things that the vice president said. And so now we are back to the drawing board in having to explain to the world the justice of our cause, of us being here for 3,300 out of the last 3,500 years, in Jerusalem being the capital of D.C., of David's capital here now for 3,000 years. And getting that message out is becoming harder, unfortunately. It's becoming harder in a world with media that has its own point of view. It's becoming harder in a world in which social media plays such an important role. And it's become harder because in Israel, public diplomacy has never been the top priority of the budget. And under Netanyahu, even more so. Netanyahu has his priority in using the foreign ministry to be welcomed all around the world. He is the foreign minister. Did not give that job out to a rival in Likud. And he has taken that foreign ministry and removed a lot of its content from it. The fight against the boycott, divest, and sanctions movement is in the hands of the Strategic Affairs Ministry, which is run by the Public Security Minister, the guy in charge of police, Gil Hoffman. Tzachi Hanegbi is the minister, out of all the ministers, who handles most of the meetings with visiting dignitaries and goes abroad the most with missions for the prime minister. Tzachi Hanegbi is the minister of regional cooperation. And the only politician who sits there in the foreign ministry running it day in and day out is the deputy foreign minister, Tzipi Chotoveli. Now, last week, I filled in for Herb Kanan as the diplomatic reporter dealing with the countries around the world, except for India, because Herb went with the prime minister to India. And I thought, okay, maybe now that I've got this for a week, maybe let's see if I can start anything fun going on. I haven't gotten to fill in there for a while. I remember that a few years ago when I filled in, I heard from people inside the foreign ministry that it's possible that the Philadelphia or Houston consulates could be shut down for lack of funding. And I reported this, and then people there got really upset. Turned out I was right about Philadelphia, which has closed down since then. And I thought, okay, maybe let's do it again. Let's start something. And I tried to get Tzipi Chotoveli to go to bat for the American consulate that's most likely to be closed soon, which is the consulate in Atlanta. Okay? In the state budget that is in the process of being passed, it says that 7 either consulates or embassies abroad are going to have to be closed in order to save money. And so where are those 7 going to be? They're obviously not going to be in the countries that Netanyahu is reaching out to right now, like in Africa or in Asia. And so it's become more and more likely that they'll be in places that already have embassies, like the United States. And so in the United States, the consulate that is most susceptible to be removed is the one in Atlanta. Tzipi Chotoveli was the Bnei Akiva religious Zionist youth group emissary in Atlanta as part of her national service that she did when she was 19 years old. And so I thought, okay, I can have Tzipi Chotoveli lead some kind of protest against closing that consulate, and her people said, no, she's not ready yet. They haven't made the decision. Only when it becomes real will she get involved. And I said, but I've only got this job for a week. And she wasn't willing to start a ruckus. Whereas the people there in Atlanta are very upset at the apparent reality that they're going to lose their consulate that does so much for them and their community and in the Southeast in general. Now, one of the reasons why that consulate is the most susceptible to be removed is that it was really started when CNN was much more important than it is today. That was really seen as Israel's ambassador to CNN. And now we really don't need that when there are other media outlets that are equally important that are not based in Atlanta. They also talk about the possibility that San Francisco, that consulate over there will be removed and things will be handled from Los Angeles. At a time when Israeli high-tech is booming, that might be a questionable decision. Another embassy that I thought was really surprising to see on the list was the embassy in Ireland. Now, on the one hand, I can understand why they would remove the embassy in Ireland. You can handle Ireland from London. And Ireland is not seen as one of the more particularly pro-Israel governments there in Europe. But on the other hand, having been to Ireland, I think removing that embassy would be a terrible, terrible loss for Israel. When I came to Ireland to speak there on behalf of the Jewish National Fund, to speak to the community there is dealing with a very difficult situation. They're the ones on the ground trying to explain to people there that the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians is very, very different than what happened with Christians and Protestants around where they are. The Palestinians have a very powerful lobby going on there in Ireland, and they're really fighting an uphill battle. And to lose this major resource that they have, the embassy, it would make life so much more difficult for the people in Ireland who love Israel and who care so much about Israel, who I had the opportunity to meet. When I came there, I was briefed by the ambassador, so I'd be ready. I gave interviews to the top media outlets there in Ireland, and I appreciated that I got that briefing that helped me be more prepared. And because they were happy that an Israeli journalist had come and attracted the attention of the media there in Ireland, the embassy then supplied me with a driver that gave me a wonderful tour of the beautiful areas in Dublin and around it, which is really one of the highlights of my life. One of the journalists that was part of our team at The Voice of Israel, may God bless its memory, was Daniela Trobe, who had a show with Daniel Seaman, and then after that received a job as the number 2 diplomat in that embassy in Ireland for a year, which was certainly a challenge for her, and I'm glad I got to see her there in Dublin as well. And so seeing how hard she worked, how hard the ambassador worked, I really hope that they can make those cutbacks in something else. Now, there's a headline on the cover of Haaretz today, if we're allowed to say the H word here on the Land of Israel Network. I don't normally trust Haaretz for news, but they do have a headline here with some facts about how the Foreign Ministry cadet course has gone begging for applicants. All right? It says, if we're looking at what's not editorializing that like that headline, that the cadet course for new Israeli diplomats, which is very prestigious here in Israel, in 2012, 2,773 people took the entrance exam. Now it was taken by 1,374. That's a big drop. The number has dropped in half, but they're not begging. Out of the 1,374, that they accept only 15 people. Okay, it went from being very, very extremely hard to get that job because so many people want it, to still very, very extremely hard to get that job because so many people want it. So they're not begging. And I can understand why maybe it's become less prestigious and less alluring when they're constantly cutting the funding of the diplomats and they have a hard time getting by. But it's still a job that attracts a lot of people who are willing to make sacrifices because they're Zionists, because they want to help the country present its positions abroad. I will reveal that I myself have taken that course twice. The test, the entrance exam, at the very beginning when I came to Israel, and then a few years later I took it again. I did not get invited to continue on in the course. I was not among the 15 people chosen from the 2,000 whatever it was at the time, and I did not take it too personally. I don't know if it was my Hebrew or whatever else, but since the first time that I took that entrance exam and did not pass, I've spoken in 12 countries and 50 states in America, so I think I did okay, with all due respect to the other people who took that entrance exam and advanced and became diplomats serving Israel with valor around the world. So there are many initiatives going on right now in order to help Israel out diplomatically, in order to help improve its image abroad. And after the break, we're going to hear about a very exciting new effort being done to utilize a so far unutilized group of people who can do a great job in defending Israel. Stay with us.
One who doesn't respect and value his past is not worth the honor of the present and has no right to a future. Well, I promise you that I respect and value the past, and I, please God, would love to see honor in the present. And I know that all of us have a right to the future. I'm Rav Mike Foyer, and this is The Jewish Story.
Join Rav Mike Foyer for the best Jewish history podcast, The Jewish Story, on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com.
And we're back here on Inside Israel Today on the Land of Israel Network on thelandofisrael.com. Before the break, we talked about the challenges that there are going on for Israel's public diplomacy at this challenging time. We talked about how the vice president's visit could have had more of a positive effect on Israel's public diplomacy, but unfortunately around the world they focused on the Arab MKs who stood up and protested, and not so much on the beautiful things that he said here about Israel, but that there are efforts going on right now to improve Israel's public diplomacy, while the government is investing in it less. On an individual level, there are people who are taking action to use an untapped resource, which are the IDF soldiers, who are released from the IDF and then go on these trips around the world and meet people who sometimes it's the first Israeli that they meet. We're going to be speaking now to Eyal Biram, who founded an organization to take advantage of that untapped resource. Shalom, Eyal, and thank you for coming here on Inside Israel Today on the Land of Israel Network.
Hi, Gil. Shalom. I would like to tell you my story and how I found the organization Israel is. So
please do.
Yeah. During my trip after the army, during the trip after the army, when I was traveling in the Far East, most of the young Israelis finishes the army traveling, and most of the things they think they will meet is just clearing their mind, meeting nice people from all over the world. But it happened also for me when I was traveling. I met two French guys 12 hours after I landed in the Philippines on my first destination, and I was shocked. I was shocked because when I told them that I'm from Israel, I discovered that their faces changed and the vibes that was in our communication mostly changed, and their thoughts about Israel was very different than the things I knew about Israel. And the first thing they asked me was, "Hey, Eyal, you are the first Israeli I met. Can you tell me what's really happening in Israel right now?" And because I heard there is always war and things like that there. So most of the things, and I was shocked from what people thinks about Israel. But the thing that was much more stronger than that is that I saw that with a strong personal story and an unofficial meeting abroad, you can change people's mind about Israel. And after my meeting with the two French guys, and it was for half an hour of drinking a beer, I saw that their perceptions of Israel changed. And while I was traveling and I met a lot of people, I saw that that phenomenon happen a lot, and that my power as a regular Israeli that was serving in the army and now traveling abroad and love his country, that I have a power to make a difference. And when I came back to Israel, I established in a high collaboration with the Defense Ministry and the IDF, Israel is. And our organization, that this is an apolitical organization, that it's a non-for-profit, is working in a high collaboration with, as I said, with the IDF, and we are training each one of the IDF soldiers that finishes the army, and we are speaking mostly about today for 2018 about 30,000 soldiers that will be trained after in our project, that they will be prepared when they will travel abroad to speak about the country. They will be prepared that when someone will ask them about Israel, they will know better how to engage the meeting and what is the power of that meeting and why it's so important to speak about Israel while you are traveling and most of the thing you want is just clear your mind after 2 or 3 years of serving the country.
So, Eyal, that started with one beer there in the Philippines, and it's developed into something pretty big, right?
Yeah. We're speaking today about an organization that in a few years will be one of the biggest organizations in Israel and in the Jewish community abroad. Our goal is to train each one of our huge opportunity. I don't know if you heard that number, but there is more than 400,000 young Israelis between the ages of 20 to 24 that travel abroad each year. And most of them, like all the Israeli civilians, are discharged soldiers. And our idea is to train each one of them and to make the meeting that they will have abroad effectively relevant for Israel image. But in addition for that, our idea is to promote an app that will take that community and bring them the options to make a meeting with Jewish communities abroad and Christians and people that want to hear more and want to help Israel. And that's people that live around the world, and they also need to hear the personal stories of the young soldiers. And we need to make that meeting because they are the ambassadors of Israel abroad, and they need the personal stories that they will hear to know better how to speak about Israel and in their country and in their meetings to make a better perception.
Does the government or the army help you with this?
No, this is a project that is not supported, not by the government and not by the army. The army gets that training for volunteer, and we are not today. We are not connected with the ministry because we don't want to be like the foreign ministry as an organization that needs to make what the ministry told them. We are an organization of the young Israelis in Israel, and we are showing what is their faces abroad. And as I say, this is not a political organization, but this is a huge organization. And just for example, if there is 120 member of Knesset and one prime minister that travel around the world, if it's on India or all over the world, there is 400,000 young Israelis, and the power of our organization will change the way of public diplomacy for Israel. And we will make it like a person-to-person diplomacy that can make much more effectively than watching a video of Israel or maybe hear about it in the news.
How are you going to fund such an important effort? You must be rich.
I'm not rich. I'm a discharged soldier. We are working and we are supported by the Jewish communities abroad, and I want to invite people who care about that program. Also, they can be part of our supporters, and from people who from important people that understand the power of that project.
How can listeners who are here listening to Inside Israel Today on the Land of Israel Network get involved or help this important effort?
I invite people to get inside our website, www.israel-is.org, and that they can hear more and understand more and read more about the project. They can support us in that website and be more involved in our regular daily training.
That's wonderful. Thank you for being here with us here on Inside Israel Today on the Land of Israel Network.
Thank
Eyal
you, Gil.
Biram.
Thank you, Gil.
And listeners, thank you for being with us here on our show and hearing about the effort of the Vice President to help Israel. I do want to say I do appreciate all the positive, wonderful things he did. It's certainly better than what happened when Joe Biden was the Vice President and really criticized Israel when he came beside the love. Here we had pure love, and it was very nice, but we focused the show on the efforts to improve Israel's public diplomacy, and there I don't really see any long-term effort success that this vice presidential visit will have, whereas what this young man, Eyal, did, this can have a serious long-term effort in improving Israel's image around the world on a grassroots kind of level. So thank you for being here on Inside Israel Today on the Land of Israel Network, and looking forward to speak to you again next week from here in Jerusalem.